Where did we come from? The Bible says, in the beginning, God created. Evolution teaches the opposite. No one created. It all happened by itself. Which one is the truth? This is Headquarters. Doc M. Jackie. And Rich. Their job? Investigate and discover the truth. This is The Creation Case.
Another? More? Still more? This is crazy. The whole world is thinking about volcanoes.
A paper eruption.
Eruption. Perfect word.
What do you mean, Doc M?
Look, we've got all of these emails just today, and they're all asking the same thing.
You're kidding.
Here, look. This one. It's from Phil in Charlotte, North Carolina. He says, "My name is Phil, and I'm in 4th grade. I have a question. Last night I watched a show on TV that talked about a volcano that last erupted about 2 million years ago. How do they know that? I thought God created the world a few thousand years ago. I'm a little confused. Thank you, Phil."
You know, I think he has a point. I think I saw that program too, and they were throwing around millions of years for this, millions of years for that. It was very confusing.
Well, let's get this off to Rich as an assignment.
All right.
Where is Rich?
Well, I think that he said something about deep forest exploration today.
Deep forest. I think that means he's sitting behind some rotten log waiting for something to move somewhere. He could be waiting for hours.
Well, I'll get this over to him.
Do you have a creation question for Headquarters? Send your questions to Doc, Jackie, and Rich by visiting our website at thecreationcase.com.
Hey, I think I got a new message from HQ. It might be a new assignment.
Hi, Rich. This is Jackie at HQ. Doc M has your next assignment, and you better be careful because it's explosive. Yeah. Today we need you to investigate volcanoes. We know there are thousands of volcanoes all over the planet, but we need to know if they provide any evidence for creation. We look forward to getting your report. Oh, and Rich, be careful out there. We'll do our best to be careful on this end too.
I'm okay.
Volcanoes. I better let them know I got the assignment. Got message. Volcanoes. Will be careful. All right, we got our assignment. You know what? We should write that down in our journal. Volcanoes. You know what? We need to visit a volcano. You know, there's a story in the Bible that talks about underground energy. We need to check out the evidence to see if it matches up with what the Bible says. You know, we need to visit Wyoming. There's a lot of underground energy there. Let's get back to the Jeep.
Help us investigate today. Download and print your own free journal study guide at thecreationcase.com.
We made it. We are in Yellowstone National Park. We're in a volcano, a super volcano. Do you know why they call it a super volcano? They call it super because it's huge. We're standing in the caldera of the volcano right now. That's where the lava used to be.
This whole area is one big active volcano. We know it's active because there are over 10,000 geothermal features here. Geothermal means different forms of heat coming from underground.
We've come here to see some of that heat reaching the surface. Check this out.
One of the most common geothermal features is the hot spring. Something big is going on way down there because a lot of water is returning to the surface very hot, about 500 gallons per minute here. I just need to be careful not to fall in.
One of the cool things about this hot spring are the colors. Look!
A lot of colorful bacteria like to grow in this warm water that is rich in minerals. It's so cool to see so much color in nature.
To really appreciate this place, you gotta see a picture from the sky. Check this out.
Isn't that amazing? You can even see the boardwalk on the lower right.
There's a lot of geothermal activity here in Yellowstone Park. Let's go see some more.
Yellowstone is a huge park. It was actually the first national park in the United States. These are called mud pots. There's not much water coming to the surface here. It's more steam and other gases that mix with the clay and minerals. Combined, you get a constant display of mud, splattering. It's really funny to watch these little chunks of mud just jumping around. It almost looks like they're alive.
We've seen hot springs and we've seen mud pots. Now let's go see some fumaroles.
Fumaroles are like hot springs. The only difference is that there's no mud and no water makes it to the surface, just steam.
Wow, these fumaroles just go puff, puff, puff all day long. But to see some really amazing geothermal activity, we need to see some geysers. Come on.
Geysers are very rare. There are only about 1,000 in the world, and half of them are right here in Yellowstone.
The most famous geyser in the world is right here behind me, Old Faithful. We're waiting for it to erupt.
They call it Old Faithful because it faithfully erupts about every hour or so, 24/7. Since it's so predictable, millions of people come to see it erupt every year. The eruption of water starts slowly and can eventually shoot water over 150 feet high. Over 8,000 gallons of water can be blown into the air during the eruptions that only last a couple of minutes. Wow, that's amazing! You know, Old Faithful reminds me of God. He's always there for us. He will never leave us.
Wow, that was cool. Actually, that was hot. The water comes out boiling.
So how does all this geothermal energy work? Well, water from the surface drains deep down below through cracks in the ground, about a mile down on average. There, the water comes in contact with hot, volcanic rocks, and it boils. The pressure of the water boiling makes it eventually come blasting back up to the surface as boiling hot water and steam.
There is no doubt there is incredible power under the surface. So does the Bible say anything about underground energy? Actually, it does. It says that during the flood, all the water from under the ground erupted.
All of the geothermal features we've seen here today are tiny examples of what the biblical flood could have done to our planet.
Even though the Bible is not a science book, I'm glad that we see things in nature that show us the Bible is true. I think I'm going to write that down in my journal.
There is a lot of energy underground, just like the Bible talks about in Genesis as it tells the account of the flood.
You know, it's been 4,000 years since the flood, and the earth has never fully settled.
No one knows exactly when this supervolcano here in Yellowstone erupted, and there are no records of anyone that saw it erupt. There's only so much you can learn from a volcano long after it erupted.
You know what would be helpful? To see a volcano that we know erupted recently. I know exactly where there is one, Mount St. Helens in Washington. Let's get back to the Jeep.
Hi everyone, it's Doc M here at HQ. While Rich is out investigating volcanoes, here at HQ we're gonna be doing some research about DNA and about our genes. Have you ever heard someone say, it's in your genes? They weren't talking about your pants. Genes are part of our DNA that provide information about each one of us. Information about our eye color, our height, our blood type, and thousands of other little details that make you just you. That is passed on to us from our parents. Since every person has around 30,000 genes, there are almost an endless variety of combinations, like combinations this, combinations that. That's why everyone looks a little different. For example, Jackie's eyes are hazel. Mine are brown. Jackie's hair and mine are different too. Each one of us is unique. Our gene combinations are totally different. Generation after generation, our genes are passed down, and each time it's a new combination. Surprise! I love it. That's important to remember because we're not getting any new genes. We're just copying and shuffling and changing the same ones around. They're like a set of dominoes. Each one of these dominoes is different, right? You've played dominoes. No two are the same. This is an 8 and a 1. This is a 5 and a 2. They're not the same. This is a 4 and a 5, and this is a 4 and a 4. They're very close, but not the same. Wow. If there were 30,000 different dominoes in this box, like genes, there would be a massive amount of combinations possible. Wow! Those different combinations in our genes are what make each one of us unique. As generations pass, all we ever see is variety. Different ones. Never has there ever been any evidence that we are adding new genes. Just different combinations of the same, making variety. This is why, yet again, I believe God is my creator.
Hey everyone, it's me, Rich Aguilera. I'd love to see you at one of our live events. To see where I'll be speaking, visit our website, thecreationcase.com.
We're getting closer. Mount St. Helens erupted in 1980 for everybody to see. Check it out, I got some pictures right here.
This was the first time scientists got such a good close-up look at a catastrophic event.
Pretty destructive, but nothing compared to the flood. Imagine God commanding all the energy underground to come bursting to the surface.
The eruption left a massive crater 1 mile wide. 250 homes were destroyed, along with 47 bridges and 185 miles of roadway. Wow, it sure made a mess.
This is Johnston Ridge. It's the best spot to see the side of the volcano that blew out.
The blast traveled down the mountain over 600 miles per hour and was heard hundreds of miles away. This was a pretty massive event.
The eruption here allowed us to make some amazing discoveries. We saw things happen here in one day that are supposed to take millions of years.
Most scientists will see a canyon somewhere and assume it took millions of years for all the layers of dirt to be deposited there. And it's also assumed that canyons were formed over millions of years.
Hey, check it out. See that gorge way down there? Some people call it the Little Grand Canyon.
Well, after the eruption here, water and mud flows cut enormous canyons down the side of the mountain. Some people think large canyons are slowly formed over millions of years, but this one formed in one day.
After the eruption, some areas here were buried in almost 600 feet of dirt and mud.
Geologists, the scientists who study Earth's rocks and layers, assumed that this was just a jumbled mess of dirt that got buried. But they were surprised to find very finely sorted layers, hundreds of brand new layers.
There's a place not too far from here where we can check out those layers. Come on. Here's those layers I was talking about. They were deposited here in 1980.
Here we can see layer after layer, deposited in one day. It seems like the evidence tells us that the types of geological features we see all over the world can be formed quickly under the right conditions. Conditions such as a global flood.
There's one more thing we have to do to really appreciate this place. We need to climb to the rim. I got all my gear in the Jeep. It takes a full day to climb to the rim, so we're gonna start first thing tomorrow morning. The best way to check out a volcano is to climb up to the rim and look down into the crater. It's a long hike and I got all my gear. Let's go.
On May 18, 1980, a 5.1 earthquake triggered a massive landslide on the north face of the mountain.
Imagine the whole side of that mountain exploding and all the debris sliding down into the valley.
The interesting thing about this catastrophe is that the whole world got a front row seat to this event. Everyone saw it happen, and everyone saw what happened after. They were able to see how the event unfolded and how it affected the landscape around it. You know, when scientists study things that happened hundreds or thousands of years ago, they have to make some assumptions about what they think happened. For example, most scientists will see a canyon and they assume that it took millions of years to deposit the layers of rock and millions more to cut the canyon.
When Mount St. Helens erupted, it made some scientists think, do these things really take millions of years to happen?
After all, we just saw something happen in one day that we thought took millions of years to happen. As we slowly continue up the mountain, we soon encounter snow, and it starts getting steeper. Walking poles will now come in very handy.
Since many people assume that it takes millions of years to deposit layers, they were quite surprised when they saw here that hundreds were laid down in one day. Because of Mount St. Helens, people all over now wondered if the layers around the world could all have been deposited quickly at places like the Grand Canyon.
Of course, none of us were there when the Grand Canyon formed, but little clues like this cause many people to rethink this idea of millions of years.
The climbing gets steeper each step of the way. I have to be very careful. One misstep would cause me to fall and slide hundreds of feet down the mountain. I definitely don't want that to happen. The thing is, it's actually easier to climb on the snow because where there's no snow, the ground is very loose and I would be slipping every step of the way. I'm gonna have to put my snowshoes on soon. As we climb higher and higher, we get an awesome view of Mount Adams to the east.
Well, the rest of the way to the top, we're gonna need our snowshoes. Let's get them on.
Snowshoes have these sharp teeth on the bottom, great for traction in the snow.
Ready? Let's go!
We're getting to such a high elevation now that the clouds are now going by below me. Hour after hour, I march on. The best way to make it up is to have a slow, steady hiking pace. Eventually, we'll make it to the top.
We've been hiking for hours. I need a break. Actually, I think I'm gonna write in my journal.
Hundreds of layers can be deposited quickly. Large canyons can be formed very quickly. It's getting a lot colder as we go higher. I'm sure glad I brought some extra layers to wear. I'm also glad I brought a warmer hat, but I'm sure gonna miss my regular hat. Time to continue the climb. As we go higher, I encounter crevasses now too. Gotta be careful not to fall into one of those. Did you know the top 1,300 feet of this mountain was blown away when it erupted? Wow. I'm almost there. A few more feet. The view is incredible.
We are here at the rim of Mount St. Helens. From here, we can look down into the crater that was left from the 1980 eruption.
In the middle of the crater, we can see the lava dome where lava continues to form brand new rock.
Rock from the lava dome is recent. There's no need to guess how old it is because it's from the 1980 eruption. Nevertheless, those new rocks down there were tested with machines to see how old they were. The results? Anywhere from 350,000 years old to 3 million years old.
Those dating machines are pretty neat, but not too reliable yet. At the Grand Canyon, some scientists tried to date some of the rocks there too, and discovered that the machine said some of the rocks at the top were older than the ones at the bottom. That doesn't make sense. But they're still trying to work on perfecting those machines.
Don't believe everything people tell you when they tell you things are millions of years old. You know, this is a pretty amazing view. I think I'm going to sketch this view in my sketchbook.
You know, Mount St. Helens is actually considered to be a small eruption. Can you imagine what a large one would be like? Wow.
Well, it's a long journey back. We better get going. Come on. Wow, what an intense day. I'm still amazed at the view from the crater. Climbing to the summit was a lot harder than I thought it would be too, but wow, it was incredible being up there. We saw a lot of evidence of energy underground. It was awesome that God used His power to control that underground energy and clean up the world. Well, I need to finish up my report and send it to HQ. Remember, if you want to read it, just go to our website.
It's awesome that the Bible tells us about historical events such as the flood and how nature provides little clues about how it may have happened. Today, we were able to see that the existence of volcanoes point us to little clues that show us the Bible is true. There is a lot of energy underground, just like the Bible says. Hundreds of layers can be deposited quickly. Large canyons can be formed very quickly.
I find it amazing just how powerful God is. Not only did He simply speak and the world was created, He can also control things around us, such as the energy underground and volcanoes. The Bible tells us how He also has control over many other elements too, such as water and fire or the sea. Wow, God is so powerful and is in total control. I'm so glad I can trust Him for anything. You can too. If you're ever afraid or sad or unsure about anything, tell God. Talk to Him. Tell Him whatever you want. Remember, He created you. He's in total control. He will always listen and will never let you down. I hope you'll join me again for our next assignment. Remember, God the Creator loves what He creates, especially you. Good night. Don't go yet, we've got bloopers! True or false? Why am I laughing? It takes him out of breath.
We need you to know.
Here we're buried in up to almost 6 Seems like there was a million prepositions in there. Supposed to take one day to happen.